Calling all authors, the Your Book, Your Voice podcast with host Robert A. Lane features everything you need to know about narrating your audiobook, but it doesn't stop there. We have special guests lined up from all aspects of the book publishing industry, and we also dive deep into what it takes to be mentally prepared for success as an author and in life. So please welcome your host, Robert A. Lane.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I am Robert A. Lane, your host. And if this is your first time tuning in, thanks so much for joining. I'm an audiobook coach and producer, and I specialize in helping nonfiction authors, mainly nonfiction authors, narrate their own audiobook because only you, as the author, can tell your story the way it was meant to be told. You lived it, you've breathed it, and you should be the one to narrate it. So I have an audiobook coaching program that I help authors through the process of recording their own audiobook and sounding fantastic and getting them published on Audible, Amazon, and Apple. But today is a great day. Every day is a great day, but this is even better because today I have a very special guest that I'm excited to bring onto the show. Before we do, one more thing I'd want to remind you is that I do have a free audiobook narration reference guide that I want to share with you. And I have some tools and tips and techniques that you can utilize to do a great audiobook narration. So for those of you seeing the graphic on the screen there who are seeing both the video and audio portion of the podcast, by all means, grab that link. It is bit.ly/narration reference guide. Grab your guide. Great information. It's free to you. And I encourage you to go ahead and grab it. And you can always grab it on my website as well at robertlanecoaching.com. But I'm excited to bring on our very special guest who is an author who has written a couple of memoirs, who has also written an incredible story or book that called Signs, which we're going to dive into. And he also is in the process of writing and producing and publishing his next book about how to market your book as an author, which is really, really important. So I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Kevin Hall. Kevin, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Robert. I'm very excited to be here this evening.
Now, you have written some great books. You have a couple of memoirs. You wrote, the first one is Ilion. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Ilion?
Yeah, Ilion. Yep, Ilion.
Ilion. Oh, got it. Which is Ilion, My Childhood Memories. Now, can you just give us a little bit of background about that book and what inspired you to write about this memoir from that stage of your life?
Yeah, I always chuckle a little bit when people say what inspired me because it was my grandkids. There's no question about it. They would come over to the house and we'd have them, do sleepovers and things like that. And they would always ask, Grandpa, what was it like for you as a kid? What did you do? What did you play? And so, I told them the stories of how we had black and white TV until the time I was probably 13. We played ball in the street, but not knowing if they would remember all these stories, I decided to write them down. And so I wrote my first short story and I gave it out to them at Christmas time. And I made, a little bit of a production out of it. And my oldest grandson was kind of the instigator behind asking a lot of the questions. So at Christmas, I said, Caleb, come here. I've got one last present for you. So I had him come up to the chair I was sitting in and I handed it to him. And he opened it up and the look on his face. And then he showed all the family members and the looks on their faces. And of course, we had books to hand out to them too.
Right.
That just kind of cemented it in me right then and there. I need to write down more of my stories. And pretty soon I had the book, Ilion, My Childhood, My Memories, Growing Up in a Bygone Era. And all my stories and a lot of the pictures that we had and some that I had gotten from Historical Society and the public library back in my hometown, and just put the book together. And I was amazed at the reception that book had. And I launched it in April of 22. And in May of 22, my hometown library got the first copy. And then January of 23, I'm getting an email from them that my book was the number one book checked out of the library for all of 2022. And I'll tell you, you talk about receiving a New Year's gift that was so humbling. That meant more to me than anything. But that was really the catalyst of me starting my writing journey, if you will.
That's it's a perfect catalyst, to be inspired from your grandkids. And
Yes.
again, the beauty about it is the fact that you are solidifying your legacy. And that is such a great thing. And that's so important. And I love your subtitle for the book, Growing Up in a Bygone Era. And, I had similar experiences when I was growing up. We used to ride our bikes in the hills, and that was what you did back in the day. It's like
Yes.
you're out
Yes.
in the morning and you're not back until your mom is screaming for you to come to dinner, and that was your day. And it was a great time, and I love the fact that you've encapsulated that in your book. And it's funny when you're talking about the black and white TV, I was thinking about, yeah, we had black and white TV for the longest time because my mom refused to get a color TV because she was like, "Oh, the radiation's going to kill you."
Yes, yes, yes. And I don't know, Robert, if you played ball in the street back then, but we did that. And at the time, we would set the bases up. And then every once in a while, somebody would yell, car. And you had to grab the bases and get out of the street and let the car pass. And as soon as it passed, the bases went back out. And boy, you started back into your game. But those were fun times. And though the color TV didn't come along till 13. But even if it didn't, I mean, we had three channels basically. And that was really it. So once we got our chores done and our homework was done, we were outside. And you mentioned your mom yelling to it's dinner time. We had the rule that you're outside playing. You had to be in when those street lights came on. There
Yes,
was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Your backside was in that house when those street lights came on.
absolutely. That was the other signal,
Yes.
literally. Like, uh-oh, we're in trouble.
Yeah, if we weren't there, then it's a potential we could have been grounded and not allowed out the next night, and that's just the way it was.
What I really like about your book is that not only are you talking about what it was like growing up, and I think it's great for especially kids nowadays that, there is a world outside of the home. There is a world away from video games. There is a world away from, your phone and your TV and being glued, to social
Yes,
media. There is a world
yes,
out there, and you really do need to experience that. You really do. And I think another great thing is that your books have been recognized as, in a sense, historical documentation, and I love
yes,
that. I love that.
yes. I was always concerned when I got older. I most likely will be cremated, won't have a grave site, and my parents do. So when we go back to my hometown, we go up and visit my mom and dad at the grave
Yeah,
site. But
yeah,
where will our grandkids do that? And what will my legacy be? And so that was also in the back of my mind all this time. And by producing these books, I give them the opportunity now, if they want to sit around a campfire when I'm gone and just reminisce about grandpa and all the silly things he did and the stories when I was growing up, then I just think that's part of my legacy that I can leave. And it's there for their kids to read about and their kids' kids to read about.
yes. Yes, absolutely. And then your second memoir, my Rosemount, Minnesota Memories, uh, talking about, I guess, basically mainly your teenage years. I would assume that
Yes.
you were talking about. So, and then you moved from Ilion, right? You moved from Ilion to Rosemount,
Yes.
and what was the reason for that? And can you tell us more about some of the experiences from that book?
Oh, absolutely. And you're correct, Robert. It's my Rosemount, Minnesota memories, teenage years in my shoes. And the reason we moved was my dad's job was transferred. He was working for Univac at the time, and it
Oh,
was transferred from Ilion out to Minnesota. And when we went out there, we first stayed in a motel for a couple of weeks until they found suitable housing for us. And then we moved to Rosemont. I started my ninth grade in Rosemont. In fact, there's six siblings in the family,
hmm.
and I'm the only one out of six to actually graduate in Rosemont.
Hmm.
All the others graduated back in New York. Long story there, but it it was such an interesting time. I mean, we're talking about 1971, going from essentially small town America, Ilion, New York, about 10,000 at its peak in Ilion, but just a beautiful, gorgeous town to grow up in, and the things we did. But then the transition to Rosemont and not knowing anybody there,
Yeah.
and trying to fit in, had some very interesting times. The school was kind of a collaboration of a few towns. There was Rosemont, Apple Valley, and Burnsville, which now all have their own schools, in fact, multiple of them. And
Hmm.
those three towns were at the time on the outskirts of Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it was kind of like city kids meeting the farmer community kids. And so that had its own interesting dynamics. And my first week there, I will tell you, I didn't even know what I was getting into. And going from a school of maybe 100 in my
Hmm.
class to a school that had over 300 in the graduating class, that was quite a transition. But I managed through the 4 years, and when I became a senior, that's when I met a girl by the name of Sharon, who later became my wife, and we've been married as of this April for 49 years.
Wow.
And it's when you know it, you know it. And some people say, "Oh, did you have to get married?" No, we didn't have to get married. Our first child was born 4 years later, but we did it because we knew it. When
Yeah.
we After about 3 months, we just said, "That's it. We're together," and that's just the way it was. And we both felt that way, and we still feel that way. So it's been a great journey from that perspective.
Well, I can attest to that 100%. And I'll give you a short story. We're going to take a break in just a little bit, but I'm going to try to squeeze this in as quickly as I can. I'm coming up to, let's see, is it going to be our 13th year in being married in August, I believe. We got engaged on our first date.
Wow.
So when you
Wow.
know, you know. And just a little bit of
No.
backstory. We went to the same high school. We went to the same grammar school, but we didn't hang out, so we didn't know each other. And she was a year behind me. Now I knew of her, but I didn't know her. And it was
Mhm.
only back in, it was in 2011, 2012, or it was about in that time. My best friend, before he moved into my neighborhood when I was a kid, he lived across the street from her and they were friends. So that's how he knew her. So there was this connection. And I remember he would bring her up, like he brought her up in conversation. And I knew of the name, but oh man, we have to take a break. So I got to put this on hold. I'm going to keep you on a cliffhanger. Don't go
There you
away
go.
because I want to finish this, but I do want to talk more about your books, of course. Our very special guest is Kevin Hall, who's a great author. We're sharing some incredible stories from his books that he's written. You're listening to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. I will finish my little love story when we come back, but really, this is all about you, Kevin, because I want to talk more about you and what you're doing with your book. So
Okay.
don't go away. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
And welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane, your host. My very special guest is author Kevin Hall, who's written 3 books that are published. And of course, we got a 4th book that's on its way, which we're going to be talking about as well. I guess quickly, just to wrap up my little love story that I ended up on. Basically, my friend, he brought up my wife's name. And this is the funny thing. I did have a shopping list. This is the person I want to be. She has to be this and this and this. I don't want somebody who's married. I don't want them to have kids. I don't want any baggage. I don't want this, blah, 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 blah. I have my shopping list. Well, at the time that my friend brought up her name, she was married. She had a kid. She did get divorced. But again, that was like going totally against my shopping list. But one day, this was in December of 2012, he brings up her name again. We're having dinner at our favorite Mexican restaurant, and I was like, stop eating. I need to Facebook friend her right now. Oh, I got to find her. Hold on, I got to find her. So I Facebook friend her. I send her a friend request. A few days later, she does accept. And then since it was December, I wished her a Merry Christmas. And then I thought, I need to talk to her. So I send her a message. And I say, hey, because at that time she was living in Idaho. And I said, and I was still working at Fox Studios in LA. So I said, hey, the next time you're in LA, because we did grow up in Los Angeles, the next time you're in LA, let me know. We can hang out and catch up on things. And I sent this message. And then I'm like, what did I just do? We never hung out. We have nothing to talk about. It was the worst thing I could have said. But she did respond. And we did start talking. And then in February of 2013, I invited her to come out to Sedona, where I live. And, she did decide to come out. So she flew into Flagstaff, and I drove up to pick her up at the airport. And we had been talking, we'd been FaceTiming, but I had not seen her in person probably since high school. I hadn't seen her really, only just, FaceTime. Mm-hmm. So I show up with a sign like those drivers do, to pick up people at the airport.
Yes.
I put her name, first name, my last name underneath on the sign. So it was, instead of her, it was Eileen Nishimura. No, it was Eileen Lane. I had this sign, and I had a little camera behind the sign because I wanted to get her reaction when she saw it. Very but it worked out well. Subtle. So we hug for the first time. We have a kiss for the first time, and we just stood there and we hugged in the airport. Now, Flagstaff Airport is small. It was
Hmm.
empty, and we were still hugging. We knew. So later that day, I brought her to this place, which I said, "Oh, let's watch the sun set and have the sun hit the red rocks of Sedona. It'll be really beautiful."
Yes. Yes.
So I took her out there, and I asked her to marry me, and I had a ring.
Wow.
And so I asked her, and she said yes. And I said, and I asked her again. I go, no, I go, I'm serious. I asked her twice, and then I angled her head downwards to say, look, I have a ring. And she said yes. So we got engaged on our first date, and then that August we got married, and we've been married ever since. So you're right. When you know, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mine wasn't anywhere near that, but I mean, we talked about it. I would say probably at least the third month that we were dating, and by 11 months we were married. I
Yeah,
proposed that Christmas tour, and April of the following year we got married. So
yeah.
very quick.
Very quick. And again, it's those things, right? When you know, you know. And there
Yes.
are, I'm leading this into your next book, there are signs. There are signs. Now, you've written this third book, which is called Signs. The veil is thinner than we, was it the veil is thinner than we imagine?
Correct. Correct.
And I really like this book, and I do want to talk more about this book in detail because I think it is great how you present it. And for the age range
Mhm.
that you wrote this book for. So, first, can you just give us a quick synopsis of what the book is about?
Sure. The book Signs, The Veil is Thinner Than We Imagine. It's a lot of stories from folks that I interviewed, as well as stories of my own, of how we can receive messages from beyond the veil, or what some people might call the afterlife. And there's many different ways you can receive these messages. And I decided to write this book. Now, I've had some interesting things happen in my life, and my wife has been the witness to some of them, and she's also had a couple. And one day we had some very, very good friends, in fact, our best friends, up to the house, and we had a occurrence happen right in front of them. There was no denying it, and they looked at it, and the lady Louise, she pulled from her purse a little red cardinal that had also a saying with it. And so she placed that in the area where the occurrence happened, and she began to tell us some of the things that have happened in her life. And they're a fairly religious family. Their son's a Lutheran minister. And when we got to talking, I said, all right, I've got to put these stories together. And when I started doing it, I said, I know there's other people out there that have had these kinds of events. And I
Mhm.
was watching a micro podcast, and I like the Dirty Jobs guy. And he had a gentleman on by the name of Ed Curry. And Ed had a very interesting backstory. Ed was a complete addict at an early age, drugs and alcohol, but he was a functioning addict. He was able to go to college, earn his degree, get a job, but the booze and the drugs took over his life. He wound up losing his wife and a number of friends. And as he describes it, he wanted to just end the pain. So one cold winter day, I'm not kidding you, this is his story. He strips naked, opens up the doors and the windows, and this is in January in Michigan,
Mhm.
and gathers up all of his drugs and alcohol. And all of a sudden, he sees a very bright light, as he describes it, a vision at the door. He says the vision of the entity was brighter than the bright light surrounding it. Well, long story short, he winds up following what the entity said, and all the entity said was, go to Brighton Hospital. That was it.
Hmm.
So Ed gets up not knowing, okay, that this can't be. He goes to the door. There's no footprints in the snow. There's
Oh.
nobody there. He winds up going to the Brighton Hospital, winds up being a rehab hospital. 3 years later, he's completely sober, lost a bunch of weight, moves to, I can't recall if it's North Carolina or South Carolina, but moves to the Carolinas. And if you've ever heard of the Carolina Reaper pepper, Ed developed that. And
Oh.
he also developed a new one called Pepper X. And when you talk about these things being hot, a jalapeno pepper goes maybe 2,000 to its hottest, maybe 8,000, what they call Scoville heat units. Pepper X is 2.4 million Scoville heat units. But here's the good news and why sometimes these signs are more important than you know. Doctors are now looking at that pepper for cancer research.
Mm.
So you just don't know. And there's so many of these things. And I looked through history. I went back to the Egyptians, the Druids, the Romans. I looked at different cultures in China, Japan, India, the Norse, the American Indian. And I found that these signs transcended all of that.
Mm.
And the Romans had a law on the books. And if you had a dream that had to deal with the Roman Empire, you had to go to the nearest forum as quick as you can and tell the people of this dream because they thought these dreams being messages to help out the empire. And they
Mm.
believed in the power of the dream so much that they had oracles that would help the folks interpret the dreams.
Mm.
The Egyptians believed in the power so much that besides having the Book of the Dead, they had the Book of Dreams, which happens to be in a British museum. There is so many ways we can receive these. And as I mentioned, dreams being one, they're often called visitation dreams.
Mhm.
And there's a doctor I followed out of Buffalo, New York. Christopher Kerr is his name. And he was a cardiologist by education and by his first job. But then he goes on and he's now the CEO of the large hospice and palliative care in Buffalo, New
Mm.
York. And he's chronicled 1,500 plus end of life experiences of people. And about 80% of them see visions and have these dreams at the end of life. And
Mm.
I'll say I'm fortunate to have been with my mom and my mother-in-law when they both passed on and took their last breath. I say fortunate because my wife and I both believe last breaths are just as important as first breaths. And we were there with them. And before my mom passed, she told me a story about how she had her second husband come to her in a dream and tell her, it's not quite yet, but get yourself ready to go. Well, that same kind of thing I found over in Japan. Only
Mm.
over there, they call them pickup dreams. And so all of this has been going on for centuries, going on across cultures, going on across religions. I looked at
Mhm.
the Jewish religion as well as the Christian religion um, and found all of it in there.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
it just the book dragged me in, and you could probably tell by my more animated voice I'm still involved in this book even till today. It has really wrapped its arms around me. And one of the
Mhm.
gentlemen I interviewed, and I'll stop a little bit after this story, he was going home from his brother's funeral, chartered a plane to take him and his family back home. And 10 minutes into the flight, the pilot dies.
Oh, jeez.
He takes over. He now has to concentrate and land the plane. And let me tell
Wow.
you, that's a whole story in and of itself.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
But I talked to him afterwards, and he told me, he says, when you walk in the light, you have no fear. And he further goes on to say, if
Yeah.
your book can help one person, then it's done its job. And
Yeah.
that gave me
Absolutely.
chills. And that's kind of where I still feel about that book today.
Yeah, that is really fascinating. Um, I did want to share a story about a book that I have just worked on. We do need to take our second break, which I do want to share. The timing is really great here, isn't it? No, but that's okay. That's why I love doing this live. By the way, if those of you who are tuning in, if you wanted to join in on the conversation, you're more than welcome to. You can give us a call. We have the phone number on the screen, which of course is 866-451-1451, or you can comment in the chat as well. We'd love to hear from you if you want to ask Kevin any questions about his books or his experiences as well. This
Sure.
is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. Boy, we're going to have more to share with you, so don't go away. We're streaming live on the Bull Brave TV network.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
And we're back here on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. My very special guest today is Kevin Hall, who is an incredible author who's written 4 books, 4th being in the works, but will be coming out soon. And we've been talking about, we talked about your memoirs, your first 2 books, and now we're talking about your book Signs, which, again, signs of things that we should be and can be aware of people who have passed away. I just recently finished working with an author who was a client in the audiobook coaching program that I teach. Her name's Kelsey McHenry, and her book is called The Husband on Loan from Heaven. And she shares her story about losing her husband at a young age, really. I mean, luckily I think they had at least 22 years of marriage, and then he had an accident and he was gone. But what was interesting about the book, and she did talk about those signs, and she would even ask for signs, to say, she would say, I'm walking on the beach, and I would say, show me something, let me find something pink and blue. And she's on the beach.
Yes.
And she finds, I forget what she found. I don't remember what it was, but it was something that it was pink on one side and blue on the other. I mean, just random. How did that get there?
Yes.
Or there was a sign of these, and she has photos that she put in her book. this cloud formation that literally looked like angel wings. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It was
Yes.
amazing. Or this rainbow. I don't even know what. Basically, like a rainbow that surrounded her in a photo that you just happened to just take a picture. Just like these things, but they are out there. And I find it fascinating. And I've had experiences of seeing things and dreams, absolutely, of friends who have passed away, telling me, and this is the message that I feel that I was getting, was that I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm happy
Yes.
where I am.
Yes.
And that's comforting. It's really
Yes, it is.
comforting.
Absolutely. And I had a dream that my brother came into. Now, my brother passed away at 59 due to a heart valve issue that none of us knew about.
Uh,
And uh, when I was working, I've been retired now for at least 6 years. When I was working, there was a point in time where I also had a sideline business, which was a janitorial maintenance business. And my brother helped me out in it. And we had stores in strip plaza, stores in the mall, and stuff like that. Well, when we went in to take care of the mall stores to ready it for the next day, at Christmas time, we would afterwards walk the mall and look at all of the displays that were set up. Nobody was there, but the displays were still working, and we were, just chit chatting as brothers do. And it was a good time.
uh-huh.
And then he passed on, and he came to me in a dream. I remember the color of his shirt. I mean, everything. It was so vivid. We were back in the mall walking.
Ah,
And that's how I knew that this was a visitation dream. He was there, and he was just as happy as can be, and it was just so comforting. But these signs can come to you in many different ways. You could get them in dreams. You could see the certain numbers over and over again. And boy, do I have some stories on that. Uh, Animals, things that are not natural and just don't happen. Don't take them as coincidence. Think deeper about it. Is this actually a sign happening? And it could very well be. And I mean, in my research, I found movie stars and other folks of notoriety that this stuff had happened to. I don't know if you are old enough to remember Sam Kinison, the comedian.
sure. Oh
But
yeah.
there was a great one of him when he passed away due to an injuries sustained in an automobile accident. But a very interesting story right there that his brother tells.
Hmm.
Suzanne Summer and her husband Alan Hamill. And
Mhm.
Alan wasn't a believer until after Susan passed away. And he just kept seeing sign after sign. And one day, a hummingbird, he was getting ready to leave the house, and he opened the door, and a hummingbird flew all around the house, and landed on a picture of Susan.
Huh.
And he said it was right then and there he put the pieces together, and he's been a believer ever since. And there's
Yeah.
so many of these things that happen. And I mean, in the book, I don't get into anything of a dark nature. And you do have to be a little bit careful along those lines. Don't look to invite anything along those lines in. But I mean, you can also talk and ask for these things, just like
Yeah.
that one person you were mentioning on the beach. There's a book over my shoulder here, this shoulder, um, which is my Rosemount book. And there's a picture of an airplane there. And that airplane was on the roof of the motel that we first stayed in when we went out there before my parents found suitable accommodations.
Uh-huh.
And I looked for that picture all over. I knew we had a picture of it. And I called the historical societies out there, and they didn't have any picture of it. They have a picture of the building being demolished, but they wanted a picture. They would love a picture of that hotel with an airplane on it. Well, this was during COVID, and we had all of our pictures out on the dining room table. And now I got a huge 12-foot dining room table to fit all my grandkids around. And we had all the pictures spread out all over it. My wife looked and I looked, and we repeatedly looked, but both of us remember that picture. Well, my brother's name was Butch. I mean, that's what we called him. His real name was Art. My dad and my mom, all three had passed on. So I asked him, I said, Mom, Dad, Butch, you know of that picture. If you could point me in the direction, please do so. Well, probably a week or so went by, and we had still looked at all these pictures. I go back into the dining room and looked around, and there was a frame sitting at the corner of the table. Okay, that frame's been there, but I don't remember the glass sitting up on top of it.
Huh.
And I looked at it. Underneath the glass was a stack of pictures, maybe 8 to 10 of them. So I pull them and I start going through them. Sure enough, there was the picture right there
Wow.
of that airplane that we had been looking for. And my wife and I had been all over that table. I can't tell you how many times, and could not find it. How did we miss that frame sitting right out in the open? How did we miss that glass up on top? This is what I mean by signs,
Yeah.
and we cannot deny them. And one week, Robert, before I launched the book, I'm driving home from my guitar lessons, and this car abruptly pulls in front. I've had to slam on the brakes, and I'm getting ready. I mean, there's words floating around in my head. I'm getting ready until I look down at the license plate. There on the license plate, people know me as Kevin. Very close friends call me Kev. There it was, KEV followed by 4 numbers. I won't give you the 4 numbers because that could identify the person and everything. But I go home and I look up those 4 numbers. Sure enough, it's telling me you're on the right path. Keep going and you'll be okay. Now, I say that because I also see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 all the time. And that previous week, I took my car in to get the maintenance done on it. I get the receipt back. There's the tax, $12.34. And I see this all the time. And I talk to other people, and they see numbers of 111, or they may see other numbers. And I didn't know what these things were. And I click-clacked on the computer and typed in, what does it mean when you see the numbers repeatedly?
Yeah.
And in the search results came up angel numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never heard of what angel numbers were, so I started to dig deeper into them. And they have a lot of meaning behind them. And many, many people see these things. I had no idea. But for me, it's all been very good, very positive. And like I say, I stay away from anything dark in the book whatsoever. So that's why I'm so engaged with this. I see these things coming to me. And once you start seeing them and you're open to them, you can really start to see. And these things are more than coincidence, much more than coincidence. So that's what's drawn me in and kept me engaged in the book.
And what I think is fascinating about, about the book is that you target what was like 12 to 18-year-old roughly. And before we take our next break, can you explain the reasoning for writing this book to target that age range?
Yes. And it's kind of a personal thing because I mentioned I was married in April. My dad was there, but while I'm on my honeymoon, my dad passes away. And that was totally unexpected. And now we also believe he had the same heart valve issue. And there were 6, siblings, but I have a younger sister and a younger brother. My sister was 16 at the time. My brother was 12. I've spoken with my sister about that day, but I haven't spoken with my brother, but I can't imagine the trauma he went through. And if I could talk with him and tell him then that, these signs are there, Dad will come back and he will tell you everything is fine. But that's the reason there's so many kids going through this kind of trauma. If the book can help them and help turn them to the higher power. I mean, there's definitely a higher power, Robert. I am so convinced of this, more so than I ever have been in the past. that if they can do that, and if that can help them and help guide them, then I feel the book really has done a major service. And so that's why I said, well, they're old enough, 12 years of age. I don't use any colorful language or anything like that in the book. So it's something that they could read, they can understand. And again, if it helps them, then that's just that much better for the book.
Absolutely. And before we take a break, can you just share that one phrase that pretty much wraps up our existence?
Yes. And this phrase, it's a quote from Stephen Covey, but I have seen it also used with a little wordsmithing by other folks. But it states, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And when you think about that, it almost like a paradigm shift in the whole thought process that you have. And if we are those spiritual beings, which I truly believe we are, the spirit's not going to die. It's going to go on. So
Think about it. So think about it, my friends. When we take
yes.
this break, you got a couple of minutes to let that sink in, because that's a good one. That is a good one. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My very special guest is author Kevin Hall. We've been talking about his third book, which is called Signs. When we come back, I do want to dive into the book that you are going to be publishing, which is your marketing book, How to Market a Book on a Tight Budget, which is really, really important. So don't go away. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Welcome back. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. My very special guest today is Kevin Hall, fantastic author. We've just been talking about his third book release called Signs. Now, Kevin, I know you are in the process of writing your fourth book, and the working title is Marketing My Book on a Tight Budget. That may change, but we get the concept, which is really good. And what I like about that is that the first thing that comes to my mind is thinking outside the box.
Yes.
Are there ways, or so what are maybe a couple of things that you can share in regards to marketing your book? Because we are authors, we are an author brand. We need to continue to market our brand and put our products out there. What are a couple of things you can suggest?
Sure. I'll start briefly, though, with why I'm writing the book. And that is, I've been on a lot of YouTube live events. I've been in a lot of seminars. this fall, I'm going to have a trip out to Vegas for Author Nation. And what I've been gathering from a lot of this is there's a lot of authors, first time, maybe have 2, 3 books out, but they've spent so much money in the development. I mean, you've got the cover design, you've got the editing, and it's not just one part of editing. You've got line editing, you've got concept editing, and things like that. And then you've got the formatting of the book and the layout, and all of that costs. And a lot of these authors are saying, I've spent all the money that I have. I don't have anything left to market. And I've been on these live events. I mean, folks like Julie Broad with Book Launchers, Dale Roberts in his podcast, Brian Cohen, Maddie Dalrymple, and they have a lot of great information to share. But the questions that I see coming most often are, how do I market? How do I begin? What can I do? So over the years, I've been kind of thrifty in the way that I've marketed. And a lot of folks will say, oh, just place an ad out on Amazon or Facebook or LinkedIn. Again, that comes at a cost. And there's no guarantees you're going to get anything. So what I tried to do, and I've come up with 19 different ways that then I go into the book and explain them, of what you can do for little to no cost to try to spur book sales on, and then, kind of parlay those revenues into these other more costly ways to advertise and promote your book.
Yeah.
And I'll give you one simple thing.
Okay.
We all have gone to high school and mostly college. For a lot of folks, they have alumni associations.
Yeah.
Those alumni associations put out newsletters. And my college actually puts out a nice color brochure, probably a good 16 to 20 pages. And they have a whole section in there on alumni. So I went to the college website and I looked for alumni, and I found it. And I looked in there and I found who the administrators were for that. And it's very easy to do for a lot of them. They have an about section. And so then I just got their email and I sent them an email. And I introduced who I was, what year I graduated, what my major was, and that now I'm an author. And just inquiring if you would like to put a few words or do a story. I'm more than open to do that and work with you guys. Well, that one little simple email led to 3 different articles in 3 different alumni newsletters that went out about me, my writing, and one of the articles actually coupled me with some of the other authors from the school, most of them being teachers. But it was a way to get the word out. Didn't cost me a dime, but boy, did I notice a blip up in the sales. So it's a way that I like to think of it. You then take that sales and you use that to parlay into something else. You're playing with the house's money at this point.
Right.
So that's one of the ways. And I'll give you another little simple thing that a lot of people don't do, and they should do. We send out literally hundreds of emails, and in the bottom, you have a signature block.
Yes.
Well, for your signature block for authors, you should put in the book titles. You should put in, if you've got a website, and I recommend you do create a website, your website address. And also, if you're utilizing Amazon, and Amazon owns about 80% of the market, there's no getting away from that. Put the link to your author page all down there. Doesn't cost you a dime, but yet it goes out with all your emails. And I can't tell you how many times I got emails back that said, oh, you're an author. I didn't know that. Great. I just extended my reach.
That's right. And again, what I love about it is you're thinking outside of the box. And that's the way to do it. And that's good grassroots marketing. And it works. It really does. We're almost out of time, Kevin. Where can people find you if they want to pick up one of your books or reach out to you?
Sure. The best way is my website, kevin-hall.com. My email is also khall4@aol.com. You're more than welcome to send me emails. I will respond back. The books are available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Ingram Sparks. I found it out on Walmart.com, Target.com, etc. Good books. I mean, once you put them out there and you say wide distribution, you can send them all over. And I'll tell you, this has been one joyful ride in doing it. I love coming on and talking about this. If it happens to inspire somebody to go out and actually write their stories too, well, then, man, that's just more heartwarming for me that I can enable them to do that. And on my website, there's writing tips. I also have podcasts that I've done and other information.
Perfect. No, I really appreciate it. And Kevin, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And
well,
the one
Robert,
thing
it's
that
been my pleasure.
Thank you. And the one thing that I want to leave with you before we sign off is this. When you're out and about in the world, smile at a stranger, say hello to them, give them a compliment, because that small gesture of kindness can make the world a difference in somebody's life. And we can be life changers. So let's do that. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be back next week. Have a great week. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. Take care, my friends.
This has been Your Book, Your Voice with host Robert A. Lane. Tune in each week for another powerful and informative episode of Your Book, Your Voice, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.